Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. If you want to be successful, maybe it's time to quit, says our guest, Dr. Stanley Robertson. Dr. Stan, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, Bill, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and I'm ready to share some information about how people can be a successful quitter.
That's what's so amazing. Now, your book is entitled Quit, The Last Principle of Success. Can you explain that title?
Yeah, we've all been told that quitters never win and that winners never quit. I think that's a myth. It is a total fallacy and is exactly wrong because successful people quit all the time. For example, Oprah Winfrey quit local TV, became the queen of talk. Michael Jordan quit baseball, run a three-peat. The Rock quit wrestling and became an action star. Schwarzenegger quit being an action star and became a governor. So we know that really highly successful people do quit things all the time. And in fact, I make the assumption that you cannot be successful without the ability to quit.
Well, that's a real new angle because we've been doing our show for 30 years and we've never had someone take a look at success, from the quit angle, so that you're going to give us a whole new approach today. Now, as you said, though, doesn't this cause a big pushback from people? Because basically we've always been told, don't quit, don't give up, quitters never prosper, all the sayings that involve quitting. So as soon as you start saying this to people, don't you get like a tough pushback from them?
Absolutely. Every single time I say that, I get pushback. And I'll tell you the reason why I believe that's the case. It's because as a society, we've been taught that you don't ever quit and you don't ever give up. So what we've actually done is we've taken this word, Q-U-I-T, we've turned that word into a negative thing. In other words, the word itself is not necessarily positive or negative, but we have given the word quit a negative connotation. So, for example, if I want to insult you, I might say you're a quitter. Well, I've just insulted you because I've called you a quitter. In other words, we've actually made the word mean a negative thing.
So that's a great point. We've turned it into a real negative. Just as you said, if you say I'm a quitter, I'm putting my fist up and getting ready to argue with you, and that's exactly true. Now, you say the word quit is difficult due to emotional baggage attached to it. Yeah. Where does that come in?
Yeah, so because we've turned the word itself into a negative word, it prevents us from quitting. One of the reasons why it prevents us from quitting is because there's this emotional stigma attached to the word itself. For example, a lot of people will find themselves doing things that they should have quit long ago because of the negative pushback that they get from the idea, from the concept of quitting. For example, people may be in bad or toxic relationships. It could be a friendly relationship, it could be a marriage, but people will stay in that toxic relationship because of the negative stigma associated with quitting. In other words, nobody wants to say, oh, I got a divorce or that relationship is over because of the negative impact attached to the idea of giving up the relationship. Same thing. We work jobs we hate because we have some kind of fear or emotional attachment to the idea of quitting. We live in cities where the temperature is below 0 degrees, 50, 60 degrees below, and people will say, for years, I'm going to move to another climate. I want to live somewhere else. But they don't. Why? Because there is this emotional attachment to that place. So sometimes we can't quit things because of emotional reasons.
That's a great analogy. And I was thinking while you said that, I remember a teacher I used to teach with, and she would say, I'll never give up. If I'm reading a book, even if I don't like it, I've got to finish that book. And I remember at the time thinking, okay, I mean, there's a lot of value to having perseverance, but if you don't like a book, sometimes it just doesn't live up to its image. It's not good. It's not interesting. Reading an extra 180 pages or something, I don't know where that's going to help you in life. So I can see where you're coming from. And I think you even say in your book, this book is to free us from the shame of quitting. Is that the idea?
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly the idea, because if we can free ourselves from the shame and the stigma attached to the concept of quitting, then we'll be free to move on. In other words, you just gave a good example. You're reading a book, you find out on the first, say, chapter, for example, that you do not like this book, it's not valuable, you're not getting any enjoyment. You ought to quit that book as soon as you recognize this is not working for me, and then pick up another book. There's literally thousands, hundreds of thousands of books. Why should you spend a week of your life, 2 weeks, a month of your life reading a book that does not give you any enjoyment, any knowledge, or any advancement in your success? And why should you continue doing that when you can put that book down, pick up the next book or the next one or the next one? That's going to lead to greater success than sticking with a book that's doing nothing for you.
That's honestly, that's the way I've often thought of it. And I thought of it when I was looking at your book and saying, you know, I remember that person vividly because of that, because I remember how kind of shocked I was, because sometimes we just get into a book, you know, and it just isn't right for us. It looked different in the bookstore, or the reviews were different, but we don't like it for whatever reason. And to make ourselves stick to it, it's kind of like torturous. It's like wearing the wrong size shoes because we bought them, and you know, it's not going to help our feet, and it's not going to help our attitude.
Excellent point. It's the same as if you were, for example, going to a movie theater. You're watching a movie. You know that this movie is the worst movie that's been put out this century. But what do? You got to stay and watch the full movie. Now, you've already wasted the money. You've already wasted 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Why should you waste another hour and a half? Quit, get up, get out of there, and go do something that you enjoy.
I think our producer Philip has spent some time in those movies, because his head is bobbing up and down like, oh yeah, I got stuck at this movie and it was terrible. So after the show, I'm going to talk to him and find out what terrible movie he got stuck at, because he's smiling and laughing now. So I think
from now on, he's going to know, quit.
I see him nodding the head. You got a convert right now. So already, if you have a quit T-shirt, send it to him. I would say he's a large or an extra large, and he's a strong guy. So leave some room around the muscles so you can get those big biceps.
I'll get that out to him right away.
There we go. Dr. Stan, before we go ahead, would like to let our audience know that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, and today we're interviewing Dr. Stan Robertson, the Quit Doctor. He's written a book, and he's telling us why we should quit. And Dr. Stan, can you tell us your website and where we can get a copy of this book?
Yeah, you can find the book on Amazon.com or any other online bookseller. Just type in the title, Quit, the Last Principle of Success. But if you forget that, just go to my website, thequitdoctor.com.
A great title and a great branding to remember it. The Quit Doctor. I think we'll always remember you as that. 30 years from now, we'll be calling you, and we'll still remember the Quit Doctor. Now, right. I read in your book that saying it's okay to quit and actually quitting is a necessary ingredient of success. That word necessary, can you explain why that comes in?
Oh, sure. Because now we're all familiar with some of the things that you need to do in order to be successful. We know that you do need to have perseverance. We know that you need to be competent in your subject matter. And there's a lot of other things that we recognize as principles of success. In other words, you do these things that's going to help lead to your success. Quitting, which I refer to as the last principle of success, is because we have never considered quitting to be a success principle. So I'm saying that quitting is the last principle of success, because if you're going to be successful, it is necessary that you master the ability to quit. The most successful people on the planet, they know how to quit. They quit fast, they quit often. And what I mean by that is as soon as they recognize that something is not working, they stop doing it. They disengage from that thing, and they reposition themselves into the thing that's going to get them where they want to be.
Now, that part obviously makes a lot of sense to me, but one of the notes I made when I was going through your book and setting up questions for this interview, I said to myself, doesn't this give people an excuse? The kind of person who the mom says, look, try the more difficult course, or the dad says, go out for the team. What have you got to lose? Doesn't this let them dilute their energies, and they say, see, I told you I couldn't make the team? They don't try really hard, or they maybe give less than their 100% effort. and just have that in the background that now they can quit. Where before, if someone says to you, hey, turn around, there's no bridge behind you, there's no quitting, you can't get back to home base, you're kind of stuck. Do you find this with people or the people you've worked with?
Sure, but in order to be a successful, and notice I said a successful quitter. Now, you can be a quitter. What you just described might be thought of as a quitter. What I'm talking about is being a successful quitter. Now, there's a technical term for this idea, and it's called goal disengagement, and it leads to my four-step process, which we may or may not talk about a little bit later. But goal disengagement, which is what I'm talking about, if you're going to be a successful quitter, involves certain aspects, certain factors. One of the things that you have to consider is that there are good reasons why you ought to quit, and then there are bad reasons why you ought to quit. In other words, reasons you should not quit. Just as an example, you should not quit just because something is hard work. That is a bad reason to quit. That is not going to lead to your success. You're just gonna be really a quitter. In other words, you're gonna be doing nothing. Another reason, for example, that you ought not quit is because I'm not rich yet, or because I feel underappreciated, or I'm not making as much money as my coworker, and so forth. So these are reasons why you should not be quitting. But at the top of that list is the idea that, this is hard work, so therefore I'm going to quit. That is the number one wrong reason to quit, and that's going to prevent your success.
Now, you mentioned the four-step process, and I think, in fact, I was looking at it as you were answering that question, and I said, actually, as you said, the answer is right there. And it sounds funny because most of us think, quit. I quit. That's it. It's an easy process. We just say the two words, I quit, and game over. But there's really a process, and that's what makes this so much a part of success. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So what I've done is I've read every book that I could get my hands on and studied every theory in relation to the idea of quitting. And that's why I mentioned earlier there is a technical term for this notion, which is referred to as goal disengagement. There are two things that you have to do if you're going to disengage from a goal and be a successful quitter. One is you have to give up the effort to the thing that you're doing. In other words, stop doing it. And the second part is you have to give up the commitment. That means that you have to give up the emotional attachment to that idea. So my four-step process, I use QUIT as an acronym. Q means quit quickly. As I've already mentioned, the most successful people quit fast. They quit often. As soon as they recognize things don't work, they stop doing it, and they re-engage their efforts to something more productive. So that's the Q, quitting quickly. U is understanding the negative emotions, and we've talked about that a little bit already. The I means initiate a new goal, and that's what you're talking about now. So in other words, if you're going to be a successful quitter and you're following this four-step process, that doesn't mean just quit and say, okay, I give. That means you have to initiate a new goal after you quit doing the old thing. And then the T, which stands for transform your behavior, because logically speaking, if you stop doing something, you can't continue with the same behavior if you're trying to do something new that you were using, prior.
I didn't realize it in reading, in reading your book till you just mentioned it, that the four steps actually spell quit.
Right.
So you say make the decision quickly, decide what you want to quit, understand the negative emotions, initiate new goals, so get started on the right path. I guess it's like taking a trip. If you know you're on the wrong road, make a U-turn and go back. If you're going south, maybe you should be going north or start heading to the east or the west, but certainly going in the wrong direction. And the last one is transform your behavior to be productive rather than unproductive.
Yeah, and there are certain things that you need to do in order to transform your behavior.
Dr. Stan, we want to find out more about the last principle of success, quitting, and we're going to be talking to you some more about that. But at this point in the show, we're going to take a brief break and remind our listeners that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Bill Horan, and we'll be right back after this brief intermission.
Technology moves at the speed of innovation, and today, that's lightning fast. So when you get your hands on the latest tech, don't forget to do the right thing with your old devices. Recycle them. The Consumer Technology Association and its members are making recycling your old tech device as easy as purchasing new ones. Just go to greenergadgets.org, type in your zip code, and you'll instantly find the responsible recycling location closest to your home. You'll also find lots of tips to simplify your recycling, like asking the store where you buy your new TV if they'll haul away your old one. Television sets, video game consoles, smartphones, tablets. They're all recyclable. Don't let them clog up your local landfill. Just visit greenergadgets.org. You're sharp enough to get the latest tech tools into your home. Now be responsible enough to get your old devices to the recycler. That's greenergadgets.org.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Secrets of Success. I'm your host, Bill Horan. And today on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College, we're talking to Dr. Stan Robertson, better known as the Quit Doctor. Dr. Stan, we like the word persistence. We hear that a lot. But you've mentioned that it can be detrimental if not aligned with our goals. And when I read that, I said, that makes a lot of sense because that word alignment is coming up a lot from different authors that we're hearing in the last 2 or 3 years, and aligning it with our culture, with our goals, with our personalities. So can you talk a little more about that topic?
Yeah, sure. So aligning your ability to persevere is a very important thing that you need to do. But you should not do that if you are doing the wrong thing. As you mentioned earlier, if you're on the wrong path or the wrong highway and you're trying to get from point A to point B and you are going the wrong way, if you can persist. But if you persist, you're going to end up somewhere you don't want to be. So it does not make sense to persist if you're not on the right path. So the idea of quitting is not that you should quit. So think of it this way. If you want to be successful, you're going to have a goal. Now, what I suggest is you figure out your life's goal. In other words, what is that thing that you want to be doing in life that some people may refer to as that's my purpose in life or something like that. Once you figure out what the thing is that you want to be doing in life and you set yourself on a path, in other words, a journey to get to that place, well, perseverance means that you continue on that path. You don't stop going to that place. You don't stop that journey. But by quitting, what I'm suggesting is that on the way to that journey, that you're going to quit doing the things that take you on a different path. If you're on the way to, let's just say hypothetically, you want to be a great pianist. You can see yourself at Carnegie Hall, your fingers just kind of moving across the piano keys effortlessly. Well, I'm not saying that you should quit that goal or that objective, but I am saying that if you're doing something and it starts to take you off that path, you ought to quit doing that thing and get back on the right target to get yourself to Carnegie Hall. So persistence means, yes, you continue to persist toward your life's goal, but you have to constantly adjust or quit those things that are taking you off of that path.
And I think you make a great point because you stress that one of the keys is redirecting your efforts after quitting. And this gives us the optimal chance for success because as using the directional example, if we're going in the wrong direction, even if we're going 100 miles an hour, if we're going north instead of south, we're not going to get to Florida and we're never going to get there. We have to be going in the right direction first. And if we're aligned, that's going to pay off for us. And we're going to be, heading in the right direction. And we're also going to be happier because we're doing things that aligns with our values and what we want to do and where we want to go in life. Now, is it possible to overvalue a goal? And is that one of the reasons why we might quit? Maybe winning a championship or finishing first in a sales contest?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Just from a business perspective, we are all familiar with the Ringling Brothers Circus, correct?
Right, sure.
Okay, so the Ringling Brothers have been in business for 146 years. Last year, They went out of business after being in business all that time. The reason they went out of business is because of the animals. So Ringling Brothers had been using elephants and other animals in the circus acts, and the animal rights activists started complaining that they were abusing the animals. They were tied up in court. They had been sued by these animal rights groups. They've been tied up in court for 14 years. It cost them $26 million to fight these lawsuits. Ultimately, Ringling Brothers went out of business. And when they asked them what happened, the owners of the circus said that they would not quit using animals in their act because they felt that animals are so integral. You cannot have a circus without animals. Now, they have severely overvalued the necessity of using animals in the circus. And we know for a fact that Cirque du Soleil is extremely successful, and they use no animals. So that is a perfect example of how you can overvalue something with which you should have quit long ago.
Another great point. And here we have a group that, what did you say, they spent $20 million on lawsuits over a couple of years, and yet they feel it's important to them. They could have just given it a try. If it didn't work, hey, what's the loss? And if it worked, they would have saved $20 million and they would have still been around. And maybe you should have sent them a copy of your book a few years ago and made sure they had that. Dr. Stan, once again, we want our audience to know, if you're just tuning in, today we're talking to Dr. Stanley Robertson. He is known as the Quit Doctor because his book is entitled Quit: The Last Principle of Success. You're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. And right now we're going to ask Dr. Stan where we can get the book, and is there a website where we can find out more about this principle?
Yes, the book is available on Amazon.com or any other online booksellers. And if you're going on Amazon, just type in "Quit: The Last Principle of Success." Or if you forget that, you can always go to my website, thequitdoctor.com.
I told you before the show, I think that's great branding, because I know 30 years from now I'm going to remember the Quit Doctor. I can always look you up, and if you're writing other books, it'll be easy to find Dr. Stan Robinson. Now, Dr. Robinson, you also mentioned about a story about Nicole and the bakery, and I think that's something that applies to a lot of people in the world. So can you tell us Nicole's story?
Yeah, sure. Nicole is a young lady I know out in Southern California. She was in a very abusive relationship, a marriage, and by her own admission, she was fat, and she had been fat-shamed and bullied. And during this relationship with her husband, one day she had a baby. She was in the bedroom. Her husband comes into the bedroom, reaches his hand down to her stomach after having the baby, lifts up the skin on her stomach, the kind of excess skin from the delivery, and says to his wife, "Do you think I could be attracted to something like that?" Now, obviously, this is very traumatic, and it is a very toxic type relationship. Now, eventually, they got divorced, but after they got divorced, Nicole, they owned a string of bakeries. She wanted to continue in business with the ex-husband, which she did for a long time. Now, that caused her to continue to have low self-esteem and have other problems in her own life. Eventually, she severed the relationship. She got out of the business. When she quit that business, she lost all the weight. She became a very successful writer. Her self-esteem skyrocketed, and she just became a very great and wonderful individual in her own right. So that is an idea. And remember earlier I said, in order to be a successful quitter, there's two things you've got to do. You've got to quit the effort. You've got to quit the commitment. She quit the effort because she got out of the marriage, but she never quit the commitment until she got rid of that bakery. So you see, the connection with the business symbolized that she still had this emotional connection that she didn't want to give up. But as soon as she quit doing that, she became a very healthy and happy individual.
And I love that, because I think it applies to a lot of us. We stay with a job because, and I mean, when we think of it, it really makes no sense, but we say, well, I've been there 4 years already, or I'm getting my 10-year pin or my 20-year reward or whatever that might be, and we're miserable. So what if we get a 20-year reward or a pin or an extra day off or a parking space, or even worse, staying with a person, and maybe we'll rationalize it because, you know, he really loves me or she wants to be with the children. But if we're really not happy, we're not aligned with our values. And I think there your principle of quitting really comes into place. And another totally opposite type of example that you gave is about Charlie Sheen. Now, why is he mentioned in your book, the actor?
Yeah, Charlie Sheen has a gambling problem. He had some other issues too.
I was going to say he's got a lot of problems.
Right. That's right. Well, there's actually something very good about Charlie Sheen that I did like. But the reason why I mentioned him in the book in relation to the idea of quitting is that he has this gambling problem. He likes to hang out with prostitutes and drugs and other things, and that was just an example of something that you should quit. In other words, if you're going to be successful, some things you need to cut loose from your life, and that's why that was the example that I used.
Well, I thought it was a great one, and again, very different from the Nicole story, but very poignant. It brings out a point, and I mean, he does work to enjoy his life, and I think all of us should enjoy every minute of life legally and in good order, so we don't hurt anybody else. But if we want to do that, we're entitled to do it, and let's enjoy that life that we have. Tell us, you have something called the perceived value dilemma. What is that?
Yeah, the perceived value dilemma is something very similar to what I just mentioned about the Ringling Brothers. The perceived value dilemma is a concept where we attach a value to something based on our perception of that thing. And it's, again, similar to what happened with Ringling Brothers. The value that they attached to the animals, the perception of that value did not line up with the reality. In other words, they thought that they had to have animals in the circus in order to be successful, but the reality of the situation is they didn't need to have animals. But this idea of perceived value, the dilemma is that you think one thing, the reality is something different, and that can prevent your success. And I'll give you another quick example about the perceived value dilemma. There's this one story in the book about this surgeon where he had gotten a heart attack, and it debilitated him. He could not continue to work. His wife, who was a lawyer, wanted to take over the job because he had put a lot of money into the business, and he couldn't continue, but she tried to take it over because she wanted to salvage everything that they had lost. So again, the value she attached to that business superseded the notion that if she just give up the business, she would actually cut her losses. She'd spend more time with her husband. She'd nurse him back to health. They'd stop sinking money into the business. She was not equipped to take over the business in the first place. So the value that you attach to a thing could cause you to continue doing the thing, even though you ought to quit doing it.
You've definitely convinced me. I want to remind our audience, the book is simply one word, quit, and then the subtitle, The Last Principle of Success. Dr. Stan, please give us that website once again real quick.
Yeah, thequitdoctor.com.
Thanks so much for being with us today. We'd like to remind our audience that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.